This podcast contains explicit language and content and is for mature audiences only.
Hey, you teenagers out there. If you're under 18, this show is more for your parents. So now that you have that mental picture stuck in your head, put some music on and get back to doing your homework.
We are a longtime married couple who's decided to chronicle our personal adventures and share our sex-positive discussions as we navigate our way through the swinging lifestyle.
Care to join us?
Hello again, everyone. This is Mr. Jones.
And I'm Mrs. Jones, and we want to welcome you to a bonus episode 23 of the We Got a Thing podcast. And the title of this podcast is We Got a Single Guy, Our Conversation with Tony.
Yes, our conversation with Tony.
Yes.
And we call this a bonus episode because it is an extra episode of last year, which I guess we should call last year Season 1. Season 1 of We Got a Thing.
True.
We did a couple of bonus podcasts, and so we're hoping to do a couple of bonus podcasts this year, and this is our first. So we will have our regular format and a regular podcast later this month, but this is a little bit something extra.
Well, you know why I think this is a bonus episode?
I have a good idea, but go ahead.
Because I'm sitting here sharing a microphone with Tony. And we have to sit really close to each other so that we can both reach the microphone at the same time.
Yeah.
That's a bonus.
Yeah. Well, we'll let him introduce himself in a minute, but should we give some background then?
Sure.
Okay, so we introduced Tony to you back in episode 20.
Yes.
Maybe, where we talked about lifestyle risks and rewards.
Right. And we happened to meet up with Tony. He was in town on business and he had contacted us and he and Mr. Jones hit it off and we just kind of took it from there. And
then he and Mrs. Jones hit it off.
Yeah. And then he and I hit it off.
Yeah.
Very nicely.
Yeah, it was a win-win-win.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had a good time. And after that, I asked him if he would be interested next time he came down, if he would want a podcast.
Yes.
And I got a little excited about that. And so did he.
Well, I mean, I was excited about it too. But when this visit was getting closer and closer, usually that three-way texting starts and it's like sexy talk or whatever. And you two would be talking about the podcast, like making an outline or, I'm so excited to podcast. And I'm like, yeah, I am too. But is that really the only reason you're coming to town? Because that's not the reason I'm thinking of.
Right. Well, we'll get to that.
So I just decided to save my sexy talk for in person.
Yeah. So if this evening goes well, what we plan to do is we're just doing a quick introduction here and we'll get right into our interview or our conversation, I guess. And then we'll come back at the end and give you a little recap on maybe what happened after the interview.
Geez, no pressure, Mr. Jones.
No. Well, you don't come all the way into town just to podcast. You just said that, right?
Well, that's my point, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get out of the way and start bringing Tony.
So ladies, picture this. As always, I'm sitting across the table from Mr. Jones, who is quite debonair and handsome. But
Thank you, dear.
But sitting next to me is my single guy. The room is very full of testosterone right now.
Oh, you mean our single guy?
Oh, our single guy. Sorry. Feeling a little selfish right now, maybe?
Yeah. That's because you two have to sit extremely close together.
Yes.
For technical reasons. Not,
of course.
But, that's all it is.
Yes, we're sharing a microphone because we like to share.
So we are going to introduce Tony in just a second, but the first thing that we want to do is talk about why we want to have this conversation. And so we had two experiences with single guys earlier, and fortunately, Tony was going to be back in town and was really excited about sitting here and podcasting with us. And he's listened to our podcast for a while. And a lot of times when we talk to people in the lifestyle and we listen to other podcasts, people have somewhat of a negative feeling about single guys in the
Right. I
lifestyle.
mean, couples that haven't played with a single guy, they're always like, oh, you guys have played with a single guy? Well, what was it like? Wasn't it, weird having, just another guy in the room? And they always want to know, well, Mr. Jones, what did you do while Mrs. Jones was playing with the single guy? And it's just like all of that fear of the unknown is just, people find it fascinating and scary at the same time, I guess.
Yeah. So what we hope to do today is we're going to be speaking to a couple of different audiences. We want other couples who are in the lifestyle to learn a little bit from Tony and his outlook on things. And we also want all you other single guys to pay really close attention to this and maybe get your pen and papers ready and take some notes as to, how you might be able to improve the way that you all approach the lifestyle. So would you like to introduce our special guest?
So yes, our special guest is, we're calling him Tony, and he is from the New England area. And luckily for us, he travels into our part of the country on business a lot. So it's win-win.
Yeah.
So welcome, Tony.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And so tell us a little bit about yourself, Tony. Just the basics. How long have you been in the lifestyle? How do you describe that to people? What is your thing, I guess, maybe?
All right, let me tell you about my thing. So I have been in the lifestyle for, oh boy, I'm going to really age myself here, but I've been in the lifestyle for 9 years, on and off. And I've met a lot of great people, mostly couples that I see. And, for me, I think it's about developing a connection. I think a lot of single guys focus more on the outcome, which if you're outcome driven, I don't know if you're going to have the same quality of experiences that if you're focused on the connection.
Right. So outcome means, let's just face it, we want to have an orgasm. We want to have sex.
SEX.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's just be clear. That's what you mean when you say outcome driven. And so maybe could you talk a little bit more about this connection that you described that maybe you're looking for?
Yeah, for me, I think it's being able to find a couple that you enjoy hanging out with, that you can talk to about stuff pertaining to the lifestyle, stuff not pertaining to the lifestyle, people that you could be friends with outside of the lifestyle. So, for me, I think very early on when I started swinging, I quickly realized I wasn't really a fan of, I call them drive-bys, or like just one time, one couple, and then you move on. I'm more a fan of, I guess, the repeat offender.
Okay.
And being able to kind of grow with a couple each time you see them.
Okay. So we, why don't we talk about, we really put you in an unfair position the last time, because when we played, you knew that we were going to be talking about you on a podcast.
No pressure.
Yeah. So why don't you talk a little bit about so you had an experience with us, just like you have experience with other couples. So what was that like? But also knowing that you were going to be on a podcast, how did that affect you, or did it at all?
So I definitely, meeting you guys, I think I was certainly very nervous, and because we were referred to one another through George, who I met George very early on in my swinging.
Do you know George?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you know George?
Yeah.
So I met him very early on, and I almost felt a pressure to live up to whatever he had said about me. And I think making sure I lived up to that expectation, and then knowing that, well, if this goes completely awry, that it would be kind of broadcast through a podcast. I think I kind of had a different level of anxiety. Whenever you meet a new couple, you have a certain level of nerves, but this one was a little different. But recognizing that you guys are regular people, we had a conversation, we had a couple of beers, we had some pizza, and I think once we broke through that ice, we were fine.
Right.
And everything just kind of flowed from there. So I thought it worked out.
That's so funny, because I thought I was the only nervous one that night.
No, I think we were all a little bit nervous. So let's talk about that for a minute. So Tony, when when we first made contact with you, you reached out to us maybe a year or so ago, and you had listened to our podcast and you had heard us talk about how to improve your profile. And I think, you reached out to us, and what did you asked us what?
Because I heard that you were reviewing profiles for other people, and I figured, you're a couple, you understand kind of what you'd like to see, what you don't want to see.
Yeah.
So I kind of asked if you'd just take a couple of minutes to scan my profile and see if there's anything glaring that should be in there or not be in there.
Yeah, and we had no experience with single guys at that point in time, but do you remember what we told you?
I think you told me to cut down on the DICK pics.
Yeah, I think you had about 80 or 90 explicit photos in there.
And they were all impressive, but...
Yeah. But there were just a few things that we commented on. And then I think what impressed me right away is, number one, that you asked, but number two, you actually did everything that we suggested. And we thought, gosh, we've never really given a commentary on a single guy before, so hopefully this works out for you. But anyway, we had some sort of a connection then. And then later, when you heard our podcast where you heard that Mrs. Jones had given me
the Christmas gift,
the naughty stocking gift, you reached back out to us. And at that point in time, we started a conversation. So talk about, a lot of people are wondering, how do you weed through all these single guys? So when you find one, you and I initially emailed back and forth, and then I think we started texting back and forth, and then we brought Mrs. Jones into the conversation. So can you don't necessarily have to talk about that, but like when you first engage with a couple, what is a normal way to kind of connect, and how does that progress digitally before you actually meet?
I think the one thing that you have to recognize, especially with online profiles, is 90% of the time you are talking to the husband. I think sometimes some of the other single guys, and I talk to a fair number of single guys, and I think hearing their perspective really is helpful. Talking to them and seeing how they write their emails and thinking that they're talking to the wife and kind of doing that cat call, construction worker type of thing, just doesn't sit well. So recognizing that you're talking to the husband 90% of the time, and you wouldn't talk to someone's wife in a bar like that. So why would you talk to, why would you talk to a husband like that on the internet?
Right. And so have you ever, at that point in time, shut somebody down? Like if people are, if there's a couple that really want to meet you and you pick up on some sort of a vibe, have you ever just discontinued that yourself?
I have. It probably sounds very bizarre for a single guy to shut it down, but there are times, especially with these online profiles, and you make yourself very vulnerable by having an online profile, and the pictures that are there where couples will just be like, show us the dick pics or show us the sex pics,
right?
And open up your albums and kind of lead with the outcome rather than the connection.
Okay. So then, how does if we're 90% of the time we're starting with just the two of us, what happens when the lady comes into the conversation? What does that normally look like?
So I think the way that we had done it, where you and I had a conversation, you had vetted me, making sure that I'm up to the standard that you want, and then we bring Mrs. Jones into the mix. I think that's pretty much how things have gone. But I think what you have to do is come at it with respect. If you don't have respect in the situation, it's going to be dead in the water.
Right.
And then once the woman comes into the fold, that's where you have to make sure you're inviting, friendly, personable. If you're a lame duck, nobody wants to be with you.
Right. So, Mrs. Jones, when you came into the conversation, what were you thinking at that point in time?
Well, I mean, I have to admit, because this was our first single guy experience where we actually had an opportunity ahead of time to get to know him and establish that relationship. I really struggled with the whole texting thing, because I felt like my words were under the microscope, because there was not another woman to jump in and a lot of times a woman and I will kind of bounce things off of each other, and then the men kind of join in. But this was just me, and I felt like I didn't know where the boundary was on how sexy to be, how explicit to be, and I was really nervous about that. But I have to admit that Tony did a good job of finding my comfort level and adjusting his communication to meet me where I was.
Right. So were you worried about me at all? Not.
Yes. Well, I mean, you and I have that strong relationship, but I kept thinking that you were going to be analyzing everything that I said. And that just, it felt weird
Why
to me.
would you think that about me?
Because you've been known to overthink things in the past. I don't know.
My tendency.
Yeah. But it's a very different dynamic than getting to know another couple.
Right.
So
then we came, let me see. So help refresh my memory. Then we emailed and we texted and then we set a date, and then you were going to come to town, and we actually met, and then we met you for dinner. And I know that we talked about on the podcast that we talked about this, how we didn't know what side of the table that you should sit on. So
right, because we were in a booth, so it was like, two people had to sit on one side and somebody had to sit on the other side.
So was it awkward for you that night, number one? And number two, how is it normally when you meet a new couple?
It wasn't, that part wasn't really awkward about what side of the booth to sit on or what to do with that. My general approach is to let the couple lead. So if you treat this like a ballroom dance and the man leads, the couple kind of is the more dominant party here. So
right.
That's kind of where I left things. So I waited for you guys to sit down first, and then I plopped myself down.
Yeah. And then Mrs. Jones made us switch up when you went to the restroom, which was good. Yeah. And there's no other way around it. We talked about this before, but you are being vetted and interviewed. And I mean, that's just a part of, what you have to go through, but you're also doing the same thing, right?
Absolutely. I think it's a two-way street. You guys have to like me, and as a single guy, if I don't feel comfortable, I'm not going to move forward with something that doesn't bode well with me. This is about quality. This is about having good connections. So if you're not feeling it, you probably shouldn't move forward with it.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the things that we appreciated about you, Tony, was when we were on the way home and then we got here, you asked us, like, what do we want to get out of this night, and what are some specific ideas that we have, and what do we want to do? So can you talk about why you do that and a little bit more?
I think a lot of it is I'm just a planner. I'm type A. I've always been a planner, and I think I've always hated surprises, and I don't think a couple, especially in something that is this sensitive, wants to be surprised at all. Especially a couple that has minimal experience with single guys, single guy one before me and now me.
Right.
So shout out to single guy one who helped facilitate.
Pave the way.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think when you establish what it is that people want, you are more apt for success than if you kind of try to do things ad lib. Okay,
so this is similar to like when Mrs. Jones, you and I talk to another couple. And we say, okay, what do you guys want to do? Are you soft swap? Are you full swap? Are you whatever, right? So, do you remember that? I mean, what was going through your mind when Tony was asking us what we want to do?
Well, we had talked about that a little bit by text, the days leading up to that evening. So it wasn't like all of a sudden we just had to kind of switch gears and start, talking about logistics or whatever. But I think that what I appreciated about Tony was that he was I think he was genuinely interested in creating a dynamic where the three of us were comfortable. He was very concerned about your interest as far as your level of participation in the whole experience. Because I'm sure there's a wide range of participation by husbands. So,
right.
That... objective as far as what you wanted to get out of it was, just as important as what I wanted to get out of it.
Yeah. So Tony, when you're with another couple, you probably don't feel this way because your personality is not that, but guys can be competitive. So have you run into it before where a guy just maybe even awkwardly wants to like stake his claim in the room of being the dominant one?
I've been in those situations where you kind of have like the one guy acting as the alpha and trying to make the other guy know his place or whatever. And I don't think that really works in swinging. I think in swinging, you have to kind of treat all parties as equals. Uh-huh. So for me, I think if you kind of go in there, you have to almost shed your like natural animalistic instincts and be more humanistic about it and focus on, okay, I'm being invited into a couple's bedroom to do something that's quite unique. I need to treat this with a lot of respect and sensitivity.
So Mrs. Jones, you when we've talked about this before, you're not the type of person that fantasizes specifically about things. So when somebody like Tony and our first single guy asked the same question about what is it that you want from this, but yet how do you answer, or how did you answer that question?
I don't think I was very helpful. Because I don't know, like I've said in the past, every time I try to script something out, it doesn't ever play out that way because the dynamic changes, and it usually changes for the better. Once the boundaries are set, I like to know that framework in which we're going to play. And once that is established by all invested parties, I really do just kind of like to go with the flow and just let the evening progress.
Right. So Tony, the last time the three of us were together, you made a suggestion towards the end of play, which we didn't talk about specifically, but you made a suggestion and Mrs. Jones and I agreed at that point in time to do that. But had we discussed that particular, part of our evening before we went into the bedroom, it probably would have been,
I would have said no.
Yeah, Mrs. Jones would have said no.
Right.
So how did you know? Like when we were in there and we were flowing, we were playing and we were switching positions and things. What you all of a sudden stepped in and kind of made this bold statement like, "Hey, what do you think about doing this?" Why did you do that at that point in time?
It just felt so natural to engage in that conversation, and I know that it wasn't part of the script, it wasn't part of the choreographed like do this, and you guys are really good. You guys don't do that. Some couples, they want it like minute by minute, the play by play.
Oh, really?
So I think knowing that you guys were pretty flexible, pretty open, and I thought this is something that I think all three of us would enjoy. So in the moment, I just felt it was right and thought, all right, let me put it out there. Worst case scenario, it's a no.
And can I just say it was a genius suggestion?
Oh, yeah. Do you want to talk more about that, Mrs. Jones?
Well, I think everything just worked out the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, I think I just made you blush.
I think you did.
Yeah, I don't know if I've done that before on the podcast.
Good job, honey.
Yeah. So that, that it's probably time so that was our encounter. And then we obviously had a great time and it was a great experience. And so when you went home and you listened to the podcast and we've asked other couples this too. And when you listen to us describe that evening, what is it like to be, with your earbuds in and you're listening to somebody describe a sex act that you are a part of? Describe kind of what that was like.
I was elated. It is so flattering that a couple would even and I think of myself as just an ordinary guy. You guys have said, no, you're a different type of single guy, whatever. I think of myself as just like a regular old guy you'd see on the street, but it was extraordinarily flattering to be recognized in that type of way. And so I'm a pretty private person, but that podcast, I shared it with a bunch of friends. I told a bunch of friends that I'm in the lifestyle. So
oh, good for you.
So you got some new listeners.
Okay. So what was the reaction when you did that?
Very positive. A lot of my friends were like, we knew that you couldn't be a perpetual bachelor, and
Oh, so these are people that didn't even know you were in the lifestyle that you share, and these were men and women, or yeah. So
yes,
and the response was generally positive.
it was overwhelmingly positive, and now I have, I guess, like this little club of friends that want to hear everything that's going on.
So do they know you're coming down this weekend?
So they're ready for the next episode.
Well, the bar said hi.
Yeah,
now.
well, a special hello to Tony's new fan club.
That's right.
That's funny. So good. Gosh, that's good to hear.
I know.
Yes, we're really making a difference there. So let's shift gears a little bit. We've talked about us, and we've talked about our time together. Let's talk about, we were talking earlier today about planning this podcast out, and Tony, you used a term called that you try to change the minds of single guy haters. So there's a perception out there that a lot of people have that sometimes single guys aren't as respectful, as you are, and trustworthy as you are. So to kind of set the tone, I'd like to share an email that we got from one of our listeners, and it's really, our listeners are really a part of a lot of what we do here, and it's always so coincidental that Mrs. Jones and I will talk about a topic that we want to discuss, and then all of a sudden an email will come in and mention the very same topic or ask the same question. So we got an email this week from a listener in the Northeast, and she's given me permission to share this. And I just want to throw this, I want to read this, and then I'd like, actually, all three of us to kind of, not just going to put Tony on the spot here, but just respond to what you think is going on here. So, okay. So hello, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. The past 6 to 7 months have been pretty good for our part as far as being in the lifestyle. There have been a few bumps, but luckily it was from outside our relationship, and we were able to quickly rebound. It took us a while to find a lifestyle site that worked for us, but we're in the Northeast, and there's not much community up here. So another hurdle that we've run into, and maybe it's the area where I'm unsure, is that we both identify as bisexual. We have found it difficult to find other bi couples, especially ones that we feel are a good match. I will say that be picky and be patient is her mantra. I wonder where she heard that.
I don't know.
Yeah. So if you can imagine, let me take a little break here. So it's hard enough to find a couple that you're going to have a four-way connection with, but when both are bi-curious or bisexual, that makes it even more difficult. So anyway, let me continue. We thought that finding a single bi guy might be the better way to go. I really want my husband to live out his fantasies. Finding bi or bi-curious women is easy. I will say that finding a decent single man has been incredibly hard, or at least in our experience. We just met up with one, and it did not go well at all. On his profile, he said he was bi, but he was not. I had an uneasy feeling to start, just the way his body language and demeanor was. He very much liked me, but there was nothing I was interested in about him. By the end, he had insulted our marriage and a large portion of the general population. Close-mindedness is a huge turnoff. In the middle of the meet-up, he asked us if there would be a chance that he and I could play together separately. I answered that maybe once we are all comfortable and that there is a great deal of trust, but really in the lifestyle for us is a big adventure for us to explore together. He went on to say that our marriage was a sham and that without trust, all we had was a piece of paper. We both sat there as he insulted us, letting him get it out of his system. There was nothing we could say at that point. He had figured out that we were not really interested and was not handling it very well. My snapshot, I guess I would say, for the whole situation was the drive home. Holding hands in the car, I was a bit shaken and upset. The single guy had seemed nice at first. My husband looked at me and said, "Our marriage is the opposite of a sham. It's bulletproof. We have the trust in one another to be able to live out our fantasies, and we always will come back together. If that isn't a real marriage, I don't know what is." Needless to say, I made him feel very, very good later that night. So this is a story that it has a happy ending because they have such a solid relationship. And they are very unique because they're both bi. But I just thought that I would throw this out there to get kind of your thoughts on, what you think about how they handled it once it started to go wrong, and where could this guy have come from? And in your experience, do you see anything like this?
So the general approach when someone is insulting something as important to a couple as their marriage, I think if I were the couple, I probably would have shut it down right away and not given this guy the opportunity to let it all out of his system. That's just unacceptable. The posing as a bi guy to get with a couple is probably an anomaly. Most people kind of do the opposite, where it's the straight guy who may be bi, poses as a straight guy or rounds up or down to straight, to get just a broader net of couples to be with. But regardless, in this situation where he's, pretending to be something that he's not, you learn pretty quick, and this couple was pretty astute to figure out this guy's not for us. You're right that a bi couple, they are a niche market, and they do kind of have to look a little harder than the couples that identify as straight, or the couples that have straight male bi or bicurious female. And I think that's tough. I think for them, one of the things that may be helpful is maybe jumping into the bi stuff right away probably is trying to achieve all of their fantasies all at once. Maybe trying to identify just a quality guy, whether it's a single guy who's straight, a single guy who's bi. Just identify one quality guy, have a good encounter with him, even if it's just all the acts are straight, and then from there evolve. I think trying to get everything done in one sitting might not be right. Totally feasible.
Yeah, that's a good point, because and she says that she's patient and picky, so that's. I think what you're saying is just get a good experience under your belt and then worry about the bi-curiosity or the bisexual part of it later.
We have been meeting a lot of people at different events that we've gone to. And recently at an event, we just met another couple where the guy was bi-curious. And you were talking to him about that. And, he was saying that there's probably more bi-curious men out there than is acknowledged on the websites, because men are afraid to put that out there.
Right.
So I think her advice of being patient and picky is probably spot on, because I think a couple for them is out there, but they're just going to have to really take the time to let that happen.
Right. So Tony, you mentioned something that's interesting. You said normally, what is your experience with coming in as the single guy? And the couple tells you that they're straight, but you pick up on maybe some signals from the guy that he's bi-curious. Has that happened, and what is that like?
So there have definitely been times, and I think if you listen to some of the other podcasts that have featured single guys, they've probably also kind of described similar experiences where the couple identifies as being straight, but in the heat of the moment, there are some liberties that are somewhat attempted in the heat of the moment. And, for me as a single guy, I think I can kind of hold my own, and I'm pretty good at kind of swatting a hand off my back.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think and I hate to use this terminology or this vernacular because it sounds so dramatic, but the bigger victim in that situation is probably that straight wife that had no idea that quote unquote straight husband was going to do anything like that. And in that type of situation, do you really want to put your wife, do you really want to kind of like do the shock and awe type of thing to your wife in that moment? And for those couples where the husband might be thinking about it, I think the more respectful thing to do would be just to have a conversation between the two of them, because that's like to see the reaction of a wife that didn't know her husband was going to do that, and it really kills the mood.
Wow, I had never even thought about that
No,
perspective.
I hadn't either. I was asking the question assuming that the wife already knew, but
right.
you're saying that you've been in a situation where, so what is does the guy make advances or eye contact with you when his wife is not looking, or what, how does that, how do you know, how do you suspect that she doesn't know, I guess is.
Like this can play out in a number of different ways, but there's incidental touching that happens as a function of just three people being
right
within 5 feet of one another. And then there's the type of touching that happens where you're just like, did you really need to be in that vicinity or what have you? And that's how you kind of pick up on it.
Right.
And, the wife isn't always face down, or the wife isn't always not looking. So when she sees it and you see that look of terror on her face, that's where it's like, oh geez, I wish this wasn't going down.
So I imagine some of our listeners might be curious. So when that happened, if you can think of an instance when that happened, did you like disengage right away, or what would your response be?
I try to be respectful. I mean, to get to that point, to make it, through the process of meeting a couple out, having drinks with them, having good conversation, developing a rapport, developing a connection, and then in the heat of the moment, and who knows, maybe the husband truly is straight identified or what have you, and in the heat of the moment, that's just what felt right. I try not to let that like totally diffuse the whole situation. I usually just kind of like, and I'll use the example of like a hand stroking my back. I'll just kind of pull that hand off my back, and the husband kind of get it pretty quickly.
Oh, I know. That's happened to me once before too.
Well, right. And I mean, when it did happen to us, and he, realized that when I inserted myself between the two of you, that we were not interested in that, he was very gracious.
I know.
So he decided to test the waters, and when he found out that it wasn't wanted, he went right back.
I know, but honey, what would you think if I did it to him?
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
would be like,
you'd be mortified.
Yeah. Right.
Wow.
You'd be caught off guard.
Right. So I guess it's safe to say that as a single guy, you have to be, gosh, as a couple going in to play with another couple, there are things that we look for that are red flags. But as a single guy, you've got to be looking all over the place because you don't really know what you're walking into. Wow.
Well, and I think that's the importance of really talking to a couple ahead of time. When I was starting out, I would meet these couples and they didn't even want to have a drink to just chat and make sure that we're all on the same page, make sure that we have a connection. I would just kind of get a text with a hotel room number. And, you learn from your mistakes, and that's one of those situations where I probably will never repeat that mistake again, where if someone doesn't want to engage in a conversation ahead of time
right.
and discuss what they're trying to get out of this, it's probably not going to work. But
right.
in terms of the couples that are, with a straight identified in the profile husband or what have you, most of them are very, very respectful once you kind of establish that physical boundary, and it sounds like you guys had the same experience. And then for the couples who are bi identified on the websites, I find them to be the most respectful at all, because they know that you're not fully immersed into what their culture is, and that they probably ask more questions than anyone. Wow. So I find them probably the most respectful.
Wow, that's good to hear. Wow, that's very interesting. So moving on from the email, I want to touch on something else before we talk about some more fun stuff. But so Mrs. Jones and I we have a private profile. It's not a We Got a Thing profile on a local website here in Washington, D.C. And this past week, somebody viewed our profile. And I wish this wasn't a podcast and I could show you his profile picture, but it's basically him with his dick out and his balls and a cock ring on, and it takes up that's his profile picture. And, I wonder, if we could talk a little bit about Tony, and this specifically for advice for guys, single.
Well, can I say it's a really nice picture, but I think there's probably more to him than just
Well,
that
you know
picture.
what? Okay, so you've said that before, Mrs. Jones, before Tony comes in. So you had said something, and I think you said if that's the best feature that you have, don't.
Yeah, I need a little bit more than that.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
really, I think you also said that after a while they all look the same, really.
Well, right. I mean, every guy's got a cock, and I don't really like. I don't know, and maybe this is me. They're all nice, and as long as it works, I really don't care what it looks like.
So why do you
I
think?
just need it to be functional.
So what would you tell the guy? I'll start with you, Mrs. Jones. What would you tell the guy? What would you tell this guy if we could bring him in here and say, "Look, dude, not just stop with the dick pic, but why?
Well,
What would you rather see?"
because I'm attracted to the whole picture. I mean, I need a brain. I need a physically fit body. I mean, that could have been a really nice dick on a really icky guy. I don't know. Or, that a guy that can't put a sentence together. I don't know. I need a little bit more than that.
Okay.
That's very important to swinging, I guess. But to me, it's not a huge factor. There's other factors that are way more important to me.
Yeah. So Tony, what would you say to that guy?
I would echo Mrs. Jones's comments in that, the stimuli, the things that appeal to a woman are different than the things that may appeal to a man. And I think you use the term blockhead.
Once or twice.
Usually referring to me, but yeah.
the things that would appeal to the caveman types of guys, where it's just like, oh yeah, you show them a set of tits or you show them an ass, they're ready to go. What appeals to a woman is totally different. And when you open up an issue of Playgirl, it's the full gamut, head to toe of the guy. It's not just his package. It's not just the appendage. So you have to understand who your audience is and what your audience appeals to.
Yeah, I have to give one of our Twitter followers, I have to give Gogo a shout out here. She put a tweet out that said, she was obviously referring to a single guy, and she said, "You did such a wonderful job photoshopping out your face, but you forgot to Photoshop out the toilet in the background." So let's think about the background, too, guys. So try to get your whole persona in there and do it in a place other than the bathroom, or you're trying to take your shaving kit off the counter when you need to do that as well. So that's just a no-brainer. So not to make single guys out to be bad all the time. We did get an inquiry from a single guy on the same website. And I won't read the email exchange, but basically his profile picture is him in a tuxedo, which Mrs. Jones.
That works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his email was similar. It was, if I could summarize it, or paraphrase, it was like, I read your profile and you guys look like a really solid couple. The missus is very attractive. And if you're interested at all in a single guy, I'd be interested in continuing the conversation with you. And, then I replied and we had an exchange, and I told him that, we had a full plate at the current time, but, thank you for reaching out. And then he responded to my reply and said, "Okay, thank you very much. You won't hear from me again, but just remember that I'm interested and please reach back out." I mean, that to me is the profile picture, his profile, the email exchange, and the fact that when I said no, not now, he just didn't delete the email and I never heard from him back. He came right back. And so now in the back of my mind, I know, that there's potentially a guy out there.
That makes him intriguing.
Yeah, exactly. So Tony, you mentioned, or Mrs. Jones, you mentioned a while ago about, the two of us going into an encounter with another couple as a husband and wife. Now, when you're a single guy, you have nobody else. You have no wingman. When we have a play experience, we can come home and we can say, "Hey, what did you think about that?" And, "Hey, did you think that was weird? Or did you think that was hot?" And I have a sounding board and she has a sounding board. So as a single guy, when you have one of these experiences, good, bad, or indifferent, and you come home, I mean, besides the dog, I mean, how do you get that? Do you have a sounding board? Do you have somebody that you can kind of bounce these things off of?
I do. And for that reason, I think as a couple, when you go into an exchange with another couple and you leave, you can kind of talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, everything that happened, and you have kind of a confidant. As a single guy, you have no one, but I have one friend, my friend Tom. He's listening. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Tom.
And I tell him everything, and he's very, very conservative. He would never do this himself, but he respects what I do and always has a ton of questions. Usually they're just off the wall, but it's nice to have someone to just talk to and ask, like, hey, does this sound, and excuse my French, does this sound fucked up?
Yeah. Yeah, let me tell you what happened last night, and what do you think about that? Yeah, so because I always wondered about that, because you mentioned blockheads, and we guys are blockheads, and we need, I need Mrs. Jones to keep me, kind of grounded and to bounce things off of. So I guess some good advice would be as a single guy to have somebody out there, that you can trust, that you can kind of, am I way off base here, and am I?
And I think it's just the way that I was brought up, but I'm a worrywart. So every time I go to meet a new couple, and I always tell Tom, all right, if I go missing, I was at this bar last.
Yeah, you leave like breadcrumbs or something, a paper trail. So Tony, what would you say? Let's talk a little bit about, and recently me and Mrs. Jones and I played with a couple. And they had said something about never being with a single guy, and at the end, they were kind of having second thoughts. So, what would your message be to, if you could talk to couples who, assuming that they have a misperception about single guys, what do you think couples get out of this, and what would your message be as a very level-headed, respectable, single guy for what you see other couples getting out of this?
I think the overarching message would be to give single guys a chance. There are good ones out there. There are a lot of weeds that you have to filter through. But like vetting a couple, you have to invest time, you have to invest energy into vetting a single guy. And that's not easy. You do go through a process of talking to multiple guys. But when you do find one that works, it's a nice addition to a couple, and I think a lot of couples enjoy the dynamic of the single guy. Whereas with two couples, you have to make sure that all four personalities are on board with one another. With a single guy, it's a little bit more straightforward.
Right. So we have a good friend that, actually, I'm going to give her credit. So Paige and Penn from Swinger Diaries, Paige, when I was trying to coerce Mrs. Jones into being interested in a single guy.
You were just planting the seed.
Yeah. Yeah. I reached out to Paige and I said, hey, you gotta help a brother out here. You gotta talk to Mrs. Jones and tell her all about your good experiences with the single guys and why she should do this. And the one thing that she said that I want to get your response to is she said, just remember this: single guys are single for a reason. So really what I want you to do is, okay, you're a young guy. You've got a lot of life ahead of you. You obviously have individual goals for relationships. So specifically, why are you a single guy now? Why don't, where are you in your, quest? Are you interested in other women? Are you interested in a long-term relationship? And what would you say? Because there are couples out there that are thinking, he's got to be single for a reason.
So if there was like a video podcast, and when you said that, it could capture my eyes rolling.
Yeah,
like
they were rolling.
Like a slot machine in Vegas. I don't think that people who are successful single guys in the lifestyle do this because they don't have options elsewhere. For myself, I certainly have, I certainly date. I certainly have no trouble, quote unquote, getting, I hate to sound so crude, but getting action on the outside in the real world.
Right.
So for me, I think that notion of single guys are single for a reason it might play true to a select proportion of the population of single guys, but I don't think it plays true to all of the single guys in the lifestyle. For myself, I enjoy that connection. I don't know if I necessarily feel that type of connection when meeting a single girl, especially in my age bracket, and having that type of sexual and erotic energy that I think a couple, once they've kind of worked through their relationship over decades, have really established. So for me, I'm not doing this because I don't have options. I'm not doing this because this is like my only avenue. I'm doing this because I truly enjoy it. For my quest for, my own personal relationships, yeah, I'd love to settle down and find someone, but being a bachelor is certainly fun, but I yearn for companionship. So if any of the listeners out there know anyone,
well,
I'm available.
Okay, well that answered my next question. So if you live in the Northeast and you want to know more about Tony, send us an email.
That's right. I'll vouch for him.
Yeah, no doubt. So have you had? So you've mentioned at the start that you've been in the lifestyle about 10 years now. Over the past 10 years, have you had girlfriends? And if so, what do you do? Do you tell them about the lifestyle? Do you disengage from the lifestyle, or does it depend on the girl?
So over the past 10 years, I have been dating in the vanilla world and also in the lifestyle. So when I say I've been in the lifestyle for 10 years, I really mean that in the on and off type of sense. And I'm all about open and honest communication with any, potential girlfriend. So I'm always upfront about where my past has been. And some people respond poorly, some people respond positively, but at least you don't have this black cloud hanging over your head, or that you don't start a relationship on a lie.
Mm-hmm. So you don't see, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I hear you saying is the lifestyle for you is not a substitute for a relationship with another woman. It's something, it gives you the opportunity to have a relationship with another couple, but it's not that you're replacing one with the other.
Yeah, for me, I think it's important to make the distinction that this is, and the terminology lifestyle, it kind of makes me cringe because I don't eat, sleep, breathe swinging. I kind of do this more as a recreational thing, and I certainly have the capability of having meaningful relationships outside of the lifestyle.
Okay, well, I think I speak for Mrs. Jones when she says she's happy that you do this as a side job.
Yes.
So let's get into some more fun stuff. Like, so you've been at this a while, Tony. Talk to us about experiences that you've had. Talk about, funny things, scary things, mistakes you might have made, things that surprised you. I mean, I'm sure that, people are just interested to know, share some things that are really interesting that you've run into.
I mean, so as a single guy, there definitely are these moments where I call up Tom right after I'm driving away from a hotel and ask him, is this really crazy? So I think probably the funniest, and this happened a while ago. So you had done a nice episode about the safe sex episode and the CDC having a number of good resources. So this one couple, we had agreed to get tested and go through that whole conversation. And the husband really wanted me to finish off inside of the wife. So fine.
With no condom.
Right.
Okay.
So we do that, and and I don't want your listeners to think that that's like the norm for me. That's probably more of the not norm. So we do that, and the husband gets one of those like teaspoons that you kind of like shuck oysters with, but not the fork, the little teaspoon,
Yeah.
and fishes it out of his wife, and kind of does that airplane thing that you do to a toddler to feed them with my load. So that probably
with his wife into her mouth.
Yeah.
And this is supposed to be one of those that's kind of funny and kind of gross at the same time.
So yeah, for your listeners, I hate to be crude, but that's probably the most bizarre, or probably the funniest. And that's one of those ones where you sneak on your clothes and you just sneak out the door.
Okay. How about, I know that you mentioned to me before that when you've talked to Tom and other people that they ask you some crazy questions or what are some funny things that people have said to you about what you do?
So the one that I get often is, what do the husbands do if they're not, because husbands' participation varies. They either are just watching, being a voyeur, or they're actively participating, or some hybrid in between. And for the situations where the husbands are not participating and purely a voyeur, the question I get often is, aren't you afraid that they're going to do something like, you don't have eyes in the back of your head? And Tom had made this comment very early about, well, what if they take the drawstring from the curtain in the hotel room and just strangle you with it? Aren't you afraid of that? And it's one of those things where it's like, oh boy, why did you have to plant that in my head? And so now I'm like always looking over my shoulder.
Yeah. So have you ever been in, like, a lot of times we'll go into a play situation and we'll talk four-way and everybody says that they're okay. But have you ever gotten into a situation and you realize that maybe the husband or the wife, one of the two of them, didn't want you in there to begin with? I mean...
I usually try to I try to smell that out ahead of time. So I try not to let it get to the point of getting to the bedroom. I try to make sure that I can vet both the husband and wife pretty equally to make sure this is what they want and they do want to move forward with this. You do deal with, especially newer couples, where they're nervous and you worry about, are they ready to kind of do this? But I think when you have a conversation, you just show that you genuinely care about the connection. It really diffuses some of those nerves.
So is there a line that you won't cross? I mean, like, we're not the type of people that come up with scenarios, but I imagine you get scenarios a lot. Has there been a scenario or two that maybe have been proposed to you that you've said, I'm not going to do that?
So I don't know if this is a weird one, but I've had this happen 3 times now, where three couples in my history of swinging have asked me to sire their children.
And what's the term that you use for that?
The term the one couple had used was trailer park IVF.
In vitro fertilization.
So that's definitely a line that I'm not interested in crossing, and for a variety of reasons. But it's just, if I'm going to have kids, I want to have them on my own volition, and I don't want to have to do that through
But
the lifestyle.
Did that cross your mind, like the guy who took the oyster spoon? I mean, when somebody wants you to finish inside their wife without a condom, does it cross your mind that maybe they're not being honest and that is what they want?
Yeah, so your vision certainly is better after the fact,
right.
And with that, I'm like, oh geez, and I didn't ask enough questions, and I was a rookie at the time, so I think knowing the questions to ask, especially when husbands, and it's usually the husbands that pose the scenarios. Not to say that the wives don't, but it's usually the husbands that pose some of the more extreme scenarios where you really have to scratch your head and ask, is this something that I should really go down the path of?
Right. So how about role playing? Have people asked you to, like, come to a bar at a certain time and talk about, something like that?
I get the pickup role play thing often, where a couple will be at a bar and they will want the wife to get picked up, which I think that's flattering for most wives, especially most people who are in the lifestyle are typically in their relationships for a fair amount of time and are older. So to kind of feel, desired and wanted again, I like that one. I think that's probably a good role play that I enjoy doing. And, not every couple's into it. Most couples, once the rapport is developed, they're like, okay, we can drop the act.
Well, has anybody before today done the fantasy where they invite you in to do a podcast with you before they? That's Mrs. Jones's whole MO today. In case you haven't Yeah, it's you two are sitting next to each
We're
other
drawing
there.
him right into our web.
Yeah, there's only one microphone. It's forcing you to get close together. I don't know if you picked up on this yet, but I think this is her role play that she really won't come out and say.
Yes.
So what about particular like positions? I mean, you hear, the thing about porn is a double-sided thing. It's good because couples can watch it and people can watch it and get ideas and see what's going on. But sometimes it can be so over the top that people think that there's these positions that you can do easily. So when it comes to like specific scenarios or positions and let's talk, I mean, what do you like? Like, are there certain positions or do you like it when a couple comes to you and says, hey, I'd really like you to, I want to do DVP or we want to do DP or we want to, do that. I mean, how do you do you enjoy doing that? And then could you describe to us like a time when that was really hot for you?
So there's a fine line that comes with the couples that come to you with very specific requests, because sometimes the requests are very choreographed and it's like minute by minute, play by play, stroke by stroke, what's going to happen, and that's not fun. I don't think anybody enjoys that except the person doing the choreographing. I think where it becomes more interesting is where the couple will say that they're interested in doing X, Y, or Z. And if you could incorporate that into the play, that's where it gets fun. So I try to avoid the couples that want the choreographed routine, and along with the choreographers, you get the couples where there's almost like a traffic cop. Go faster, go slower, go.
So that takes the spontaneity and any enjoyment out of it.
And for me, to be honest, and you guys have we've shared a night together, so I think you guys recognize that I probably don't do the porn star persona, but I focus more on the experience. And I think a couple of couples that I have been with have described me as delivering the quote unquote boyfriend experience. So I think that one, you can't really choreograph some of the stuff that you do in a porno.
Right. How about the hot wifing stuff? Have you had couples that, the guy's strictly going to sit in the corner or even be restrained in the corner, and then you're just going to enjoy his wife without him being involved? Have you been a part of that? And if so, were you able to enjoy that?
So the hot wifing and the cuckolding certainly runs a spectrum, and there are some couples who are very mild in terms of what they want. They just want to have a guy come in and have sex with the wife and, kind of fulfill this fantasy of like this younger guy coming in to have sex with like the housewife MILF type of thing. Mm-hmm. And then some like it a little bit more extreme. And I think the example of siring someone's children is probably the most extreme that you can get in terms of that whole hot wife cuckolding thing. But I think the majority of couples enjoy the lighter end of things. The heavier stuff I'm not terribly interested in. For me personally, I actually prefer the husbands to participate. It just doesn't. It just feels like everyone's on a more neutral ground when everyone's participating versus when it's just me and the wife and he's watching or he's videotaping or what have you.
So how about, have you been involved with couples when there's just more men than just you and the husband? And what does that look like?
So this is probably like the number one request I get from couples that I've seen on a semi-regular basis to like, after a certain rapport has been built and we've been seeing each other frequently, to like bring in a friend or bring in a couple of friends. So I've been in that situation. I enjoy it a lot. And I think this is probably why I don't like the FMF threesomes, because they require a lot of like you're the main attraction for a lot of it. Whereas when there's multiple M's and one F, you can actually take a break if you wanted. But yeah, it's enjoyable. I enjoy that a lot.
I mean, I have to I have to tell on Mrs. Jones today because I had said, what would you think about more than just two guys? And what was your answer?
Well, you and I had to have then like a big debate on what was a gangbang and what was the dynamic of a gangbang. And you said it was more like a take a number thing. And it would be like one guy at a time coming up. And I said, I didn't think that was the case at all. I thought it was, where you'd have like, at least three guys engaged with the woman at once.
Right.
Oh, all of them swarmed up on you.
Yeah.
And then you said that you didn't think you would like it. And I said, oh, well, let me throw a scenario out at you. I said, let's just say tonight that me and you and Tony are getting down and then single guy number one knocks on the door. Would you turn him away? And what did you say?
I said, well, no.
So there you go.
I
I know.
Is he in town?
Well, I don't think so.
If the doorbell rings, I guess we'll answer it.
That's the next podcast, right?
Yeah, right. So what have we, what we wanted to do tonight, Tony, is to give you, we really have a lot of respect for you and we really enjoy being with you. And we really feel like we wanted to give you an opportunity to use this platform that we have to speak from your perspective. And so is there anything else as far as either to single guys or to couples or just to the lifestyle in general? What is it that you would, kind of want to say to sum this up and to try to get, your message across? I would think that there's a business opportunity out there for guys who do this right.
Oh, that's sexy, honey.
Well, I mean, I'm just looking at it that way.
Well, I do travel a lot, so if couples who are interested, contact Mr. Jones for my info. But all kidding aside, I think you started off the podcast by talking about how there are multiple audiences here. You have the single guys, you have the couples who may be contemplating a single guy but aren't quite there yet. So to the couples that are thinking about a single guy, I think the things that should be considered. It's hard. Swinging is not easy. Trying to find couples that are compatible is not void of any work, and trying to find a single guy that's high quality is not void of any work. So just recognize that while it seems like you're getting bombarded with a plethora of emails that clearly don't read your profile or are the profile picture of just appendages, there are good quality single guys out there. It just requires a little bit of investment in time and energy to find them and to vet them out. And then the other part of that is once you do find a single guy that you think might be appropriate, take the time to, have the husband kind of ensure that the conversation is going right, and then bring in the wife for a group text. And that dynamic right there, if there's major shifts in how a single guy talks to the husband versus how the single guy talks to the couple when the wife is present, that should be a red flag. If there's major discordance, then it's probably not going to work. But ultimately what you should be looking for is a guy who's respectful and not focused on just the sex. I mean, a lot of us are in the lifestyle because we just want to make friends who are just as open-minded as us. For the single guys out there, I think the big advice I would have for the good ones out there is don't get discouraged. There are, the quote-unquote couples that are single guy haters. And, you do kind of have to roll with the punches. It is an uphill battle. And in the lifestyle, women kind of hold the cards here. So recognize that is like where you're starting off. But if you treat people with respect, if you come at people with, good intentions and focus on the connection rather than just the outcome, if you're outcome driven, it's not going to go very far. And the quality of couples you meet won't be that great. But if you come at people with good intentions, respect, and focusing on the connection, you'll be successful. And not having a dick pic as your profile.
Well, and I think you're saying, to bring it back to full circle, what our listener said in her email, and that was, be patient and be picky. So that actually works on the single guy side too, because a lot of times guys want instant gratification. And so I think what I hear you saying is single guys should approach it just like we as couples approach it, and that is be thoughtful with your profile. understand what couples are looking for, be patient, be respectful when you make communication. It may take you, after you set up a profile, I mean, that doesn't mean you're going to have sex tomorrow night when you upload your profile today. And so I think what you're saying is, if you're in this for the long haul and you want it to be meaningful, that you need to be deliberate and a little bit strategic about it. And when I was talking about a business opportunity, I wasn't necessarily talking about you. What I was talking about is there are going to be a demand. I'm saying that if there were more single guys like you, Tony, that you would be in demand. And so there are guys out there, ironically, who are doing it the wrong way, and they're driving customers to you. I mean, really, and we find that, too, that if you do this the right way, as a single guy, you will find some quality couples and you will have a good time. So,
and for the couples out there, I think you bring up a good point about just developing that street cred. For the couples out there, talk to other couples who have played with single guys. They can help refer you to kind of some of the more quality ones and save you some of the stress.
Yeah. Mrs. Jones?
Well, I think it's intimidating finding a single guy. I mean, so I have to confess something. I don't think I've ever told you this before. So like when I wrote the little note and put it in my naughty stocking, it was just kind of like when I first suggested going to Desire. It was almost like I was calling your bluff, because I figured it would be so difficult to find a single guy that both you and I were comfortable with, that it would probably be like a really long-term venture to actually find a single guy. And then,
Oops.
Yeah.
Kind of backfired on you, didn't it?
Right. So then like a month and a half later, we found our first single guy. And then, a couple of weeks after that, we found single guy number 2, who is sitting here with his hand on my ass.
No wonder you're not talking much.
And my hand isn't on my own lap either. So, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised about the 2 men that we have met and played with. It's just been a much higher quality experience than I thought it would be.
Yeah. Very good. Did we miss anything?
I don't know. I think we've had some good insights today.
I think we're ready to close this up and go put a couple steaks on the grill.
I think I've been very patient because my mind is definitely thinking further down the road for the evening.
I've done 22 episodes with Mrs. Jones, and this is like the first episode where her head really hasn't been in the game. Tony, you've been a little bit of a distraction, but that's okay.
In a really good way.
Yeah, you are our featured guest, and we certainly appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us and come down, travel down here and be on our podcast. And also personally, I have to say that, and this goes for not only single guys, but couples we play with. One of the things that I look for as a husband is I'm looking for, whether it's the husband in a couple that we're with or a single guy, I want to know that I can trust the man with the love of my life. And if I can't do that, it's not going, for any further than that. And so the fact that,
well, and that goes both ways, because if I don't think that you feel comfortable with him, then I can't relax.
Yeah.
And have a good time myself.
Right.
So you're trying to protect me both physically and emotionally, but at the same time, there's got to be buy-in on my part, and that's not going to happen unless I can, sense that you're comfortable.
Right. And this is one of those things that really, we talked about this in the last episode when we talked about how to talk to your spouse or your partner about getting into the lifestyle. And that is, I always had this, I always wanted to see you with another man, but how does that make any sense? That doesn't make any sense at all.
That's what's so cool about it.
Right. So to be able to have the relationship like we have and say, you know what, I'd really like to see this. And then, and taking some of my own medicine from what we said last podcast was I didn't force it on you. You gave it to me as a gift in a stocking. Now, whether you really thought it was going to happen, obviously that's a new revelation here. But when you were ready for it, you put it out there and then it happened. So, I don't know how to explain to other men and other women that, to me, as our listener said, in this email, I want I want to do whatever I can as a husband in the relationship that we have together to give you, things that are going to make, I want you to have fun, and I want our relationship to grow, while at the same time having a guy like Tony who wants to be a part of that and be a part of the relationship for the moment and add something to it. So he's not simply a toy, he's not disrespected, he's not playing a role. He's just like the couples that we play with. We were looking for that connection, and we're looking for that level of trust. And so anyway, thank you, Tony, for taking the time out.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Tom and Tony's fan club, thank you for the role that you're playing and letting Tony bounce ideas off of you and experiences. And thank you for listening to our podcast.
Okay, well, welcome back, everyone. It's actually Monday night now. Our single guy, Tony, had to get on a plane and go home and get back to real life, and Mr. Jones and I had to go to work today. But we had definitely some non-podcasting playtime after we finished recording on Saturday night, and we had so much fun with Tony, as always. And we decided that the snapshots just couldn't wait until another normal episode.
Yeah. He was, when he got up from the podcast table, he was so sweaty he had to go take a shower. He said he was a little nervous, but I think it was because you were rubbing his thigh while you were
we were sharing a microphone.
I know, and he's trying to think off, and you're making him nervous, and you're
I was trying to put him at ease by rubbing his thigh, and then I kind of put my arm around his shoulder, and we kind of had to, shoulder to shoulder, we really had to get in there so we could both reach the microphone.
I think, considering the fact that you were such a big distraction, he did a wonderful job.
I was trying to help.
Next time we're going to have you on the other side of the table. I'll sit next to Tony next time.
Okay, that might actually have to be like a picture snapshot.
Yeah.
Blur your faces out and put it on the website.
Yeah. So what we thought we would do for our snapshot segment is, unbeknownst to us, when Tony was at the airport, I dropped him off and he sent us a snapshot of a certain point in our playtime Saturday night.
Yeah.
And so we thought we would share our perspective of the exact same moment that he's describing.
Yeah, because it was my snapshot too. And then because Mr. Jones and I hadn't even really had time to talk yet. And then Mr. Jones said, yeah, that was pretty much the most momentous part of the evening for me too. So I think, we'll do a 3 perspective snapshot.
Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead and let Tony start. You're going to read his snapshot.
I'll read on behalf of him since he had to go home.
Okay.
All right. So he starts out by saying, my naughty snapshot, making out with Mrs. Jones and rubbing her clit while she was riding Mr. Jones reverse cowgirl, feeling her body tense up and come several times, was memorable. So yeah, we played for a long time.
Yeah,
that
I think
night.
it was over 2 hours.
I think it was like 3 hours because we finished dinner kind of early because we podcasted in the afternoon, and then we got dinner ready and had some snacks and everything while we were making dinner. And then as soon as we finished eating dinner, you guys were like, "Well, now what do we do?" And I was like, "Well, I guess I'll go change clothes." So I put something a little more comfortable on, and I came back downstairs and I thought, okay, well, we'll just hang out for a while. And I got back downstairs and you guys were like, I think we should go in the bedroom. And I was like, well, okay.
Yeah, we didn't need the dumb card game for sure.
No card game, no.
And by the way, just for the record, this is 2 playtimes in a row where I finished last.
Oh, good grief. Yeah. For those of you keeping score at home.
Yeah, exactly. I got to improve my reputation. Okay.
Well, but it doesn't matter who finished when. We all ended up finishing, and it was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, we did. So are you going to give your version of that moment, or do you want me to?
You can go first. I'll
Okay.
go last.
So I think he mentioned you were reverse cowgirl.
Right.
So I was laying on my back, and you were reverse cowgirl, which meant you were sitting on top of me, and your back was facing me.
Right.
And he was in front of you on the bed.
Right.
And I think, was he on his knees? I couldn't see.
Yeah, I think he was. Either that or he was standing on the floor, and I was near the edge of the bed.
Okay. So the point is, I could not see him. I mean, I could see his shoulders and his head, but I couldn't see what he was doing. You were on top of me, and I had my hands around your hips, and I had my thumbs just above your butt cheeks in the back, and then I had my fingers on the front of your hips. So I had a good, and then I was pulling you and pushing you back and forth. So you weren't bouncing up and down.
No.
It was more back and forth. And every
Right.
once in a while, I can tell that I start hitting this spot, and I couldn't tell what he was doing from the front, but whatever he was doing in combination with what I was doing,
It was working.
it was it was the Groundhog Day of Mrs. Jones orgasms, because you just had one after another.
Yeah,
after
it wouldn't
another,
stop. It
after
wouldn't
another.
stop.
And neither one of us, because it really, since I wasn't going in and out, I was lasting. It felt good, but I could have done that a long time, because it was this back and forth. And then you started swiveling your hips forward and backward, which is really, almost like thrusting motion from behind. And that was pretty cool.
And he would, a lot of times when I do reverse cowgirl, I'll kind of lean forward and put my hands on your knees, and he wouldn't let me do that. He pushed me back. So I was almost leaning back,
Yes.
towards your head.
Yeah. A couple times you did lean back.
Oh, and I have to apologize to you.
That's right. This is when you grabbed
did you ever check for a bruise?
No, do you want to look?
Yeah. No, there's no mark. You're tough.
Yeah.
So at one point I was leaning backwards, and I had my hands on Mr. Jones's waist, the side of his waist. And I remember one time, I guess I got a little
Two times.
over. Yeah. Yeah. It was two different times.
Because the first time you didn't know. The second time you apologized. You didn't even know you did it the first time.
Well, when I did it the second time, I realized I had just done it before, and that had to hurt like heck for you. So I was grabbing you, but I remember actually digging my fingernails in, and I keep my fingernails short, so that's probably why you're not bleeding. But I was literally trying to rip the skin off of your body, because I was just so excited. I was completely out of control. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was very hot. Whew.
Yeah. Well, it kind of reminds me of when we first got married, and you used to have longer fingernails, and you would apologize the next day, because I would get up out of bed and you would say, "What happened to your back? What did you do?" And I said, "What do you mean? What did I do? You did that." And then you would apologize. I said, No. These are love marks.
Yeah.
It means it
Like
was good.
stripes
Yeah.
down
It
your
was
back.
like a trophy for me. I'm where I turned you on so much, you're actually digging your nails into me. So that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, it was sensation overload, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so from your side, though, describe what he was doing.
Well, he was just he was playing with my clit,
Right.
but I don't know, it was he was sensing the wave I was riding, and he knew when to kind of back off and when to push me over the edge, and then he would say, "I know you can do that again. Come on, you can do that again." And I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, you weren't complaining.
I think you're right. I think I got another one in me.
And then what I didn't realize at the time, but sometimes I was hitting the spot that normally makes you squirt, but you were sitting on top of me.
Yeah, it was a very fun evening, and that was just one snapshot of it.
Yeah,
It was,
the end was a lot of fun too.
And it was so nice because we weren't. Well, okay, so I have to explain that too. But we knew him and we had played with him before, so it wasn't that new anxiety of trying to figure somebody out. I mean, at least we had some sort of a comfort level. We all knew each
Right.
other, and we kind of know each other's bodies a little bit at least.
So were you more comfortable this time with him because there was a couple times that I stepped out. I would go to the bathroom or get something to drink.
Well, it makes me nervous when you step out. I mean, even when we're with a couple, it kind of throws me a little bit. Okay, all right, I'm in here by myself, but it's okay because these are really nice people and we're having a really good time. But it just throws me off center a little bit. So when you leave me with a single guy, not that I didn't trust him, there was nothing of that. nature. But again, it's just you center me. So when you leave the room, even if it's just to go to the bathroom or find a bottle of water or change the music or whatever you're doing, I can't see you. And sometimes I don't even like look for you, but I know you're there.
Right.
So when I look and you're not there, it just, it distracts me. And
I know. And but one time, like when he was in U Missionary, I said, I'm going over to the other side.
I know. And I like that because you told me and you were going where I wasn't going to be able to see you.
Because I wanted to watch from back.
I know.
And I knew you weren't going to be able to see me. So I was trying to tell you when I was stepping away.
But you told me where you were going to be so that I didn't lose my focus.
Yes. So do you have recommendations out there, ladies, for the ladies as far as the single guy goes?
Well, I mean, you have to find the right one. And
Yeah.
we've just really hit the jackpot.
Well, I think people can tell now after this interview.
Right. Yeah. Well, right. They've heard him speak
Yeah.
and they can tell that he's a very well-rounded person. He doesn't take himself too seriously. Ladies, unfortunately, what you can't see is how gorgeous he is. And he's very respectful. He makes me feel special. He has a way of interacting with both you and I, and he has, a lot of respect for each of us, but he makes me feel, very sexy and very special. And I don't know, it just seems so easy with him.
Yeah. And with me, I always feel like I'm the number one dog in the room. He's not competitive at all.
He's very respectful of our relationship.
Yeah, he is. And he
Yes.
defers to me. And at first I thought he was doing that just out of respect, but really he likes to watch too. I mean, he
told us that.
Yeah. And he likes to be a part of a strong relationship. And so that's easy for him to back off. And, but then when you give him an in, he's usually right there ready.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. Anyway, it was so much fun that yesterday afternoon, we went to a brewery with some friends, and on the way to the brewery,
we were talking about the night before and how we felt and how much fun it was. And we started getting into some specifics of what we liked. And we got to turn into the brewery. And I'm like, you have enough room to do a U-turn right here. We could just turn around and go home and have sex.
Yeah. Yeah. You said, I want to have sex again. So then of course, while we're visiting with our friends, I'm looking at my watch thinking, okay, we got to go to dinner tonight with our family. I want to get you home so we have time to do that.
So Mr. Jones, I mean, like we had 2 beers and we hadn't seen our friends in a long time, and they are very, very dear friends of ours. So we were
when she says dear friends, that
they're
means
dear vanilla friends. Yes.
Translation.
But anyway, we had a lot of catching up to do because we hadn't seen them in a while. So I was on my second beer and I had maybe gotten halfway through it. And Mr. Jones kept saying, are you going to finish that? Are you going to finish that? And I'm like, yeah. I mean, it was good beer. I didn't want to gulp it down. And we were talking. So finally, Mr. Jones reaches over and takes my beer and pours half of it in his glass because he had already, drank his. And then he's like, we got to get going. And I'm like, what? Are we late to family dinner? What's the deal? So
yeah, you forgot about you telling me when we were turning in there.
I didn't think you were serious because, like, the brewery was close to where we were going for dinner.
Honey, whenever you tell a man you want to have sex with him, you'd better damn be serious.
I guess so. Okay. After how many years of marriage, I finally figured that out.
Anyway, we come back home and we had like 15 minutes before we needed to leave again, and I said something about having sex, or I tried pulling your dress off when we were coming in from the garage, and you said, we're going to be late. We don't have enough time. And then you came in and went upstairs, and I said, can you let the dog down? Because I want to let the dog out while you're getting ready. So I fed the dog, let the dog out, let the dog back in. You didn't come down. And I'm like, gosh, we're going to be late anyway.
I couldn't figure out what you were doing down there. We had 15 minutes.
Right. So I went upstairs. I walk into the bedroom, and there you are with your Hitachi wand and no clothes on, and you're going to town.
Well, we only had 15 minutes. I needed to get the party started.
I know, but you didn't tell me that you were going to do that. And anyway, it worked out good because by the time I walked in there, I was like one of those.
I was waiting for you.
I
I was holding back.
I know. I was like one of those cartoon characters where it goes pew when I saw you, and my clothes and everything like stayed right behind and fell into a heap on the floor, and I was on the bed in no time.
I'm like, what is that darn dog doing outside? Why don't she needs to come in so he can come upstairs.
So it didn't take me long.
No.
And then we had to text our daughter and say, we're just now leaving home. We were like 20 minutes late for dinner.
I had to make sure I brushed my hair. I didn't want to walk in with sex hair.
So Tony, that's all your fault.
I know. We were late to dinner all because of you.
Yeah. So anyway, it was a great day.
It was a very great day.
I enjoyed the podcast. Tony enjoyed the podcast, and you kind of just were over there doing googly eyes.
I was not. I apologize. I was really not engaged in that conversation.
Yeah, yeah. And you're probably noticed the sound quality was a little bit different in that section, which drives me crazy. But now we're gonna have to get a couple more microphones because we're gonna do some more interviews this year.
Yeah, I think we are.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you for joining us in this bonus episode.
And thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. And please, if you want to send us an email, Mr. Jones, MrJones, at WeGotAthing, and that's WeGottaThing.com, or Mrs. Jones at WeGotAthing.com. Follow us on Twitter at WeGotAthing, and of course, our website is WeGotAthing.com. Anything else before we sign off, dear?
That's plenty. I think my face is a little flushed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Well, we're going to have to edit this real quick and maybe not edit this real quick and just head right back to bed.
That's right.
Well, we are Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and we got a thing.
What's your thing?